And next, without further ado, I would like to give a word to Alimov, who is the CEO of Shanghe Trade Culture House and co-founder of SCOLAR Network, our moderator for the second panel on e-commerce entrepreneurship. Please welcome.
All right, Vika, thank you so much, and thank you for an extraordinary moderation here with our sessions here as well. Greetings to our audience, and I would like to express a special gratitude to the Secretary General Vladimir Norov and Executive Secretary General Sergei Kanovsky for the speeches and reflecting on the new dynamic rise of the e-commerce within digital economies of the developing nations of the SCO. I especially would like to thank the home of the SCO Marathon, Kunming, and Kunming University, the China SCO Youth Center, for gathering us all on the platform, not only to discuss the regional perspective and proposals for expanding the e-commerce sector, but finding solutions on connecting our region through knowledge sharing and building new bridges between the grand SCO region. Today we have a all-star team of entrepreneurs, starting with Aikanysh Saparalieva, General Manager of Glovo Kyrgyzstan, a global on-demand courier service and co-founder of Kyrgyzstan E-Commerce Association. Second panelist is Zuhursho Rahmatulloev, a co-founder of the leading Tajikistan's fintech company Alif, and Max Song, a fintech, AI, blockchain, and TMT professional. So today our session will cover the topic of e-commerce entrepreneurship, and we will try to glance beyond the horizon and to find ways on how we can bridge our countries closer together. So we're running a little bit late on time, but I think we can allow to do that today. Because it's not every day that we gather together in this magnificent group of young leaders. So first, let me go around the panel and ask to shortly introduce yourself, your business, and what is needed for an entrepreneurs today to significantly advance one's business in e-commerce within your market's reality, of course. Please share what is your vision to digitalize your traditional market. Let's start with Aikanysh.
Hi, Liam. Hi, everyone. Sending my best regards to everyone and to Vladimir Norov. Thank you for having me here. Yes, Glovo is an on-demand delivery platform. It is a Barcelona-based startup that is now expanding its operations. It used to have 26 markets, but just recently it has sold its Latin America operations. So now the Glovo is focusing on several markets, which is Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And CIS region is also part of the focus of Glovo, especially Central Asia. Glovo today is a unicorn company that is estimated $1.5 billion. So Glovo investment is very important for Kyrgyzstan because it enables local sellers, the restaurants, cafes, pharmacies to sell more and go more digital, and while the couriers to earn money through the platform, and to consumers to receive the first-class service and win from the affordable prices and fast delivery. And my vision on how the e-commerce should develop and what is our vision and expectation from the e-commerce development in the local market. Me myself, as a part of the co-founder of the e-commerce association, I've been involved very much in local discussions and in order to identify where we are right now and what is our forecast and where we want to be in 5 and 10 years. The current problem is actually that the current e-commerce ecosystem is not matured in Kyrgyzstan. You know that one of the in order to e-commerce to advance in each country, the ecosystem has to be established. So when we are talking about ecosystem, we mean also it is based on the UNCTAD's definition, e-commerce ecosystem. We mean this internet penetration, right? These payment solutions, the automated logistics infrastructure, law and regulatory policies, access to finance and investments, digital skills of both, I mean, entrepreneurs and consumers, and also this digital, analytics of the market. So when we have all those areas developed and established, we can have this ecosystem that enables lots of beginning entrepreneurs to go smoothly into the e-commerce market. So since and we see that like those countries who are investing a lot into to enhance their e-commerce ecosystems, they are already kind of successful. We see China as an example, we see United States, and they have created an environment to grow to their own platforms that are today serving not only local entrepreneurs, but also giving opportunity to take advantage of online business for lots of entrepreneurs from all over the world. So unfortunately, Kyrgyzstan is today lacks this e-commerce ecosystem. It is in early stage of development. According to our estimation, the share of e-commerce from the retail turnover is less than 1%. So from the one side, it means we have a huge gap, I mean, but on the other hand, it is still a great opportunity to grow. And we foresee that with the presence of these international platforms, which enables the local entrepreneurs to sell more, and this will actually enhance the e-commerce in the Kyrgyzstan's market. So I would start with small introduction in this and give the opportunity to others.
If you allow me, I'll stay with you right now because I know you have to run, and because of the fact that we're running a little bit late. But at the same time, seeing your example of being a GM of a global player right now, coming into the Kyrgyzstan market and seeing the opportunities, although, as you said, that there's unfortunately lagging the ecosystem. What would you suggest to other countries that already have a developed e-commerce market like China, Russia, India, that would like to come into the Kyrgyzstan market? What would you suggest them to do first? And how can they actually become successful in a country like Kyrgyzstan and other SCO Central Asian states?
Maybe I can start with a vision of Glovo, why Glovo has chosen Kyrgyzstan as a country, the next destination, right? First, one of the Glovo strategies is actually, they are not choosing the highly competitive markets where they already e-commerce is established. The Glovo strategy is actually entering the new and growing markets where the e-commerce is in the early stage of development. Glovo investing to grow the market, it's investing to marketing, to enhancing digital skills, and attracting more and more partners and enhancing their sales. And after the market grows, Glovo wants to be a leader in the market, since it has been one of the pioneers who actually impacted and influenced the e-commerce growth. So I think most of big players have to consider new markets as a big potential market in the future, and help those markets to mature. I mean, before you want to have something, the big pie of something, you probably have to invest in it as well, right? So that was a part of the Glovo's strategy, and that business model and that strategy was quite successful in 22 markets. So this Glovo has also this big ambition to grow the Kyrgyzstan's market and then have some dividends from it. So I would suggest, and also what I see within the SEO market is we have various markets, right? One of the markets are very mature, and one of the markets are really on the early stages of development. And if you really want to have, this integrated e-commerce platform involving each country, we probably those big economies have also to invest for those countries who are a little behind, stay behind, investing into its infrastructure, like to building some e-commerce parks, probably to its logistics, and to scale their payment solutions. So all those efforts will grow these developing markets and make them one of the big partners in the future, so they can collaborate much smoothly and more integrated in the near future. So I do foresee that the role of the government is huge, and the role of the platforms is huge in developing these trade corridors between countries and developing these partnerships and attracting investments to the e-commerce market, the growing markets.
Thank you so much, Aikanysh. I'm going to ask you last question, and then we can let you go. I know you have to go.
Thank you.
You are also a co-founder of the Association on E-commerce. Now, e-commerce is only in the beginning steps. That is making small baby steps in Kyrgyzstan. But at the same time, I know that you are looking into the greater region as a whole. What can you recommend to other countries in the SCO regions on how we can actually bridge together and develop a sustainable model for e-commerce development in our region?
I think some kind of platform has to be created that is actually gathering all the e-commerce stakeholders from all of these markets. The platform that enables to network, to discuss what are the challenges and how we are going to overcome those challenges. And that platform could be with the participation of the business sector, with government officials, with SEO. Maybe SEO could also take the leadership of bringing and developing that kind of platform. And also maybe developing common policies, supporting some countries that are behind, and some maybe do some benchmarking analysis of where we are right now and where we are heading in 5 years. And that's kind of initial steps has to be established, I think, if we want to have more collaborated work in the future. And also I would say that if we really want to have more integrated units and the more enhanced collaboration, we really need to consider investing the chain of these e-commerce parks in each of the countries. Those e-commerce parks, that is also part of my vision, and we are developing that vision here in Kyrgyzstan together with our government. So the chains of these e-commerce parks, we know that in China there are already chains of e-commerce parks that are successfully operating, and they're enabling local entrepreneurs to go global and reach global markets. So we also need to have that kind of support for local entrepreneurs to help them to integrate to the global markets. And that kind of chains of e-commerce parks, which is established in each of the SCO member countries, could better collaborate between each other, could build that trade corridors between countries, and deliver some reports. And that kind of, tangible steps, I think, would bring its fruitful results in the near future. Otherwise, it is just kind of a vision that is just stays as a vision. Some real tangible steps has to be established, I think, in order to enhance e-commerce in the SCO region.
Well, we hope to actually establish those tangible steps, as you just mentioned. Aikanysh, thank you so much, and we're going to let you go, and hopefully, we'll stay in touch, and actually on this particular issue, develop, exact steps on what we can do in the future to bridge that, to bridge our region in the field of e-commerce. Thank you so much, Aikanysh.
Thank you very much. It's always an honor to be part of your events. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for being with us. Gentlemen, now it's just, it's just you and the two of you, Max Song and Zuhursho Rahmatulloev. Max, I'm going to refer you to the first question. Can you please describe what you do in the field of e-commerce or digital economy, and what do you think is the best vision for us to go forward in this sector?
Thanks, Alim, and it's a pleasure to be here and happy to talk, with everyone on the panel. It's really a great gathering of minds that we have here. So my background, a little bit back, context. I formerly was a data scientist, so I sort of, was helping analyze large sums of information and keeping track of it. And then later in Hong Kong, I spent some years actually becoming an investor for Hong Kong family offices in the sector of digital assets, specifically blockchain and TMT. And then today I'm actually building a company that is trying to use the tools of blockchain to better help drive sustainable finance into our economy. Sorry, there's a little background noise here. So the sustainable finance world is really critically linked to e-commerce because how we are going to consume over the next 2 decades is going to dramatically change how we live on the planet. Like we're at the tipping point in 8.5 years to actually blow past our carbon budget, and it's very clear to a lot of businesses, including Alibaba, including to Pinduoduo, including Amazon, that the means by which they have been able to make their money, also needs to be very carefully thought through. So I would say 2 points I would love to address, with the panel discussion today. One is how do we use digital economy tools, especially tools around digital assets and current, digital currencies that actually facilitate inter-country trade. And I think the SCO region is the perfect test bed for this because China, as many have read, is actually pioneering the use of digital yuan, and that I think is going to be a very big player in the economy of the region. The second is how do we use technology? How do we use technology to address the mapping of the things we buy? And we should actually, be able to nudge people to choose items that are tagged with the environmental footprint that they have, so that people, if they have to choose between 2 or 3 different things, can actually make the sustainable choice that then powers the rest of our economy to become, aware of this issue. So happy to explore those issues and many more with you guys.
Max, just a quick follow-up question. You've just mentioned the digital yuan. There's a lot of confusion on what is the difference between the digital yuan and that of WeChat and Alipay. Can you shed light on the phenomenon, and can we imagine a cashless future?
So one data point I received was actually listening to Governor Mu Changchun, who was the head of the DCEP project for China, share at the Hong Kong FinTech week last year the reason that they started thinking about this creation. And he said something very interesting. He said that today the Alipay and WeChat Pay networks both account for roughly 50% of the entire economic activity of China. And that is a significant responsibility for a private company to bear for the GDP of a country, right? If someone was to, for several reason, take offline the service of Alibaba, half of China would not be able to make their payments and do business anymore. So what I think is important for us, and I'll get out of here in a second, important for us is actually to think about this as actually an underlying baseline that's going to support the future of digital payments irregardless of company. And I think that's actually a testament, one, to the penetration that digital payments has already made, but two, it's a reflection that from a state level, right, China's thinking very seriously about how to build reliable, resilient infrastructure. And I just want to make a quick comment about, I think, my understanding of the difference. The big difference is that for Alipay and WeChat Pay, the digital money we send sits on the servers of these two companies. So my balance, right, is actually resting with Tencent. In the digital yuan case, actually the government is assigning a unique identifier to every individual person, and that person now is able to, in relationship to the government, hold assets. And I think that's a very, sort of powerful pass-through relationship. And something that we're not fully sure of yet, and I think it's very exciting to think about, is actually what the implication of digital yuan is for inter-country commerce. Not only for circulation inside Beijing and Shenzhen, where they're testing these currencies, but actually to facilitate cross-border trade. Because I think it's going to really make the ability to pay people, right, much more efficient than today.
Zuhursho, Alif is a pioneer in Tajikistan in digital payment system, but at the same time, Alif is now involved in cross-border business because you yourself is right now based in Uzbekistan and you're expanding into the other SCO markets we know as well. Can you give us an understanding what Alif is as a fintech company? I know you have a presentation. We would really love to learn more about it.
Salam, Olim John. Greetings, everyone. I hope my internet wouldn't let me down. I really appreciate that. I think I have 3 minutes to present Alif. All right.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much once again. Vladimir Imamovich, Olim John, Victoria, thanks for amazing job. This is a great event. Love it. All right, what is Alif? Okay. It was basically founded in 2014 as a microcredit organization in Tajikistan, in the heart of Dushanbe. And basically we grew into a fintech organization, a fintech company. Now it's already a regional one because we're proud to be in Tajikistan and Uzbekistan as of today. So we position ourselves as a fintech organization that is based on noble values and technology. For the past 6 years, basically, our assets grew by simply 100 times and in the last 6 years. And we employ today, from 2 people in 2014, we are over 450 individuals in Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. So far, we have onboarded, worked with, we have provided certain, different services. We have users and etc. of our services of over 300,000 people, and this number certainly is growing very fast every single day. The average age of our employees is around 25 years old. And this is important because given the fact that this event is around young people, young generation of this region and beyond, having a workforce which are, like most of them were born during independence of Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. And it's a very interesting lot to work with. Okay, and certainly we're proud of our professionals, over 20 professionals, or the management team that we have. They're one of the best people in our countries, and they're certainly very competitive as professionals. They're very competitive internationally. And these are some of the faces. And what are we doing right now? We are pretty much focusing on e-commerce and e-payments in our region because it's important. All of us understand the let's say that struggle against cash-based economy or society. So we have a e-platform, a platform that allows people to purchase things online using different payment methods, including deferred payment basis. So you can take something now and pay for it later. And we've developed a quite nice instrument or e-wallet solution for our people, which is number 1 in Tajikistan, and it's going to be launched hopefully very soon in Uzbekistan in a month or 2 months time. There's a regulatory work going on. Okay, which is called Alif Mobi. You can look it up on the. It's available basically. In the Play Market, etc. And it's an amazing place to be, and we are very proud of our young individuals who are very excited to be a transforming force in our society. So I hope I could answer, gave you a very, very short introduction. As promised, 3 minutes. I hope it's been 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Zuhursho, it's truly a wonder, and the past 6 years, the achievements that you have had in such a short time is astounding. And I remember when you just started in 2014, and I remember coming into your office when you just had 2 people, and now you're residing actually in IT Park in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, and you can see the collaboration right now between the SCO countries. And at the same time, I know that you really pay attention to the public and private partnership aspect of and basically the collaboration between the two. Zuhursho, during the pandemic, it seems that the government understood the value of digitalization, and there's a growing support for the industry. What is the PPP dynamic in Central Asia? Can you provide some examples?
All right, I'll give you a very small example. It hasn't grown into a PPP kind of level, in my understanding. But for example, in Uzbekistan, we've been approached by the Ministry of People's Education, asking us to provide, let's say, laptops to teachers, especially during the COVID time. It was a very important initiative to provide an instrument to teachers across the country in remote areas, so they would be able to teach people remotely. So this is one of very, and in exchange, of course, we provided discounts. We asked our merchants, our vendors, to go to teachers in different cities in areas of Uzbekistan, and this is an ongoing work that we've been doing with the Ministry of People's Education have been very supportive, and we hope that we can take this like very small steps towards something bigger that will potentially grow into a PPP and something that all of us as a region can be proud of.
Mm-hmm. Max, if you're there. Yes. Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
I assume that there's not going to be a lot of noise this time. Great. Max, I'm going to refer this question to you because you spent a significant time here in China being involved in all of the different aspects of fintech and e-commerce, if you will. What were keys to China's unprecedented fast-paced digitalization? Can you provide everybody who are from other countries the brief history on why has China been so successful?
So these are my own opinions, but I think hopefully they'll be useful for other people as well. The first is actually, when you have a rapidly developing country like China was in the 80s and 90s, there wasn't a lot of infrastructure in place. If you look at the West, like Europe and the US, a lot of the payment infrastructure is monopolized by Visa and MasterCard. They are fundamentally the way that you do international online payments. And the challenge there is that if you want to do something different, if you want to do something with local context, you need to actually, respect their pace of innovation. And today, actually, Visa and MasterCard are very, aggressively, expanding into Africa as well. But China actually had a very different strategy. So China created a moat around their own ability to design international payments, digital payments. And then they started thinking much more about the local penetration. Like one of the big challenges I would say for many Chinese people is that they're not living in a situation where they have access to really high technology. So the use of the QR code, I think, was a fundamental breakthrough actually in making the digital payments accessible to every single person on every billion person in China. Like there's stories of beggars, right, who don't have homes, who are homeless, who actually have QR codes that they can use to collect, donations from kind-hearted strangers. That is unprecedented. There's no one who has a POS system who's begging the street trying to get people to swipe their Visa cards, right, in order to do that. I think that's the first system. The second system is that the internet ecology of China is very different than the US because it fundamentally also has a winner-take-all philosophy. And I think the challenge there is that the people who grow fast and become the market leader, they actually get to take the entire market. Most people in other places still have to compete over fragmented market share, and that's actually one of the other sort of reasons why China's been able to grow, very successfully. The third, and this is actually something that is not as widely talked about, is that the appetite for rethinking the fundamental business model is different, right? If you look at the United States, WeChat, which is the corresponding thing could probably be Facebook. Facebook, most of the advertising comes from ad revenue, right? And in China, a lot more comes actually from the other types of activities besides the social networking aspect. So when WeChat started being able to support financial payments after they already have the social graph, right? That's something that Facebook never was able to accomplish, right? Today, if you look at the Western community, Stripe probably is the largest financial technology company outside of the big banks, right? Facebook Pay never took off, and as a result, they never were able to capitalize on the latent audience base, right? The billion plus people that they have in their sort of social graph. Instead, that was left over for someone else. So I think this ecosystem philosophy of tech entrepreneurship really accelerates the ability for the Chinese ecosystem to make good use of their value chain.
Max, I'm going to ask you a question about artificial intelligence because we know that artificial intelligence is slowly but surely changing e-commerce and many other industries as well. Can you share if there are any meaningful AI applications for e-commerce already that is foreseeable?
I think the first and most powerful one is the recommendation system, right? This is the back office black magic that is powering Ali and Pinduoduo and Amazon in their ability to drive sustained growth. Because it turns out when you go online to buy something, you're not only buying one thing, you're usually buying a bunch of things. The better I can predict what exactly you want to buy associated with this one item, the better I can actually create a value bundle, right, of things for you to purchase together and make it very convenient for you to do that. So that, I think, is the initial standing points, right, of being able to deliver additional customer value with AI, right? And with large data sets, there's all these stories of how, Amazon was able to predict ahead of time whether or not the person actually was pregnant, right? And sent advertising specific to that person, in advance of her parents knowing that she was going to be pregnant. And so that's the level of, prediction that we're now capable of, right, using this set. The second piece and part where we are starting to see a bit more innovation in actually use of AI to design new types of products, right? And this is actually coming in from analyzing, what's really popular with people, and also anticipating the demand trends that consumers are going to have over time. So in times of COVID, something I've seen recently is very exciting is actually the ability to use AI to design clothing, right, that is tailor-fit to the person without actually having them have to go to the physical store. So you use the camera on your computer or your phone, you sort of, take an image of yourself, they lift your body contours, and they're able to now do customized, design. This is something that COVID is making much more useful, but also highlights the idea that we're going to, in the future, have personalized e-commerce products, right, specific to each person, and that be able to be commercially viable as well.
Well, it seems that COVID has truly been a time of opportunity for digital economies and e-commerce market in particular. Zuhursho, how much do you pay attention to what is happening in China, Russia, and India, and how much can you actually take, I don't want to use the word copy, but adapt the successful cases from these countries, and right now we're listening to what China is doing for Max, to, for example, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and the wider market that you're trying to reach in the future?
All right, that's a very good question, Olim. Certainly, we are exploring and trying to understand how a potential super app can work in our region, something like WeChat, that we can potentially explore in Central Asia and beyond, which is Russia and other countries of our region. And we are watching closely, but certainly we are careful with the models that we're dealing with, because we have certain specifics of our markets. We have people who are like more conservative, less conservative, the traditional nuances that we have to take into account. And the question of prioritization. So let's say we have like 100 programmers and IT specialists, and we need to build our strategy in such a way that it will at least complement what's happening in the region and the world in general. For example, if you tell me today that WeChat or any of these big players, B2C, let's say e-commerce players, are coming to Uzbekistan, my thinking will change immediately. And we will basically try to understand whether we are going to compete, or we can find a common ground and find something useful together. So it's a constant process. For example, certain developments are taking place in our region, let's say Central Asia. IPO of one of the leading banks in Kazakhstan, let's say Kaspi. It's been very demonstrative of the fact that a lot of good developments are taking place in our region. So we are moving towards a better understanding. We're moving towards a greater digitalization of our respective economies. And I think with a level of unity within the region, I think we can build a block that would allow us to be an interesting, let's say, area to invest or to reckon with in terms of technology, etc.
Right. Well, competing and finding common ground could actually be complementary, especially for our markets. You probably both know that in 2017, Jack Ma pioneered the idea of electronic WTO, that is mission to support small businesses. Many developed countries have supported this idea already, and that drives basically e-commerce through innovative tech solutions throughout trade cycle. What do you think needs to happen, Zuhursho, for there to be a consensus on cross-border e-commerce?
To be honest with you, I think when it comes to cross-border, let's say movement of goods, if we're talking about goods, not services, or something that cannot be dropped on your feet, then it's a more or less a political question. It's a question where governments and countries have to agree on letting one another, to deal with customs, with procedures which are much more easier. For example, we have entities like mainland China, and within that entity or the jurisdiction, you don't have any, more or less, you shouldn't have restrictions in terms of movements of goods. But only in our region, with 70 million plus population, we have a lot of barriers for goods to move in and out of the country. For example, we're trying to explore and understand how we can connect at least in the countries of our operations, like Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. Can someone in Tajikistan order and buy something from Uzbekistan, get it on time, and at the same time be able to return it if something doesn't go right? Okay, so at least if we can start experimenting with bilateral kind of movements of goods, then we can expand it towards other nation states like Kyrgyz Republic and Kazakhstan, etc., and further. And as I said previously, having one single block with a population of around 70, 80 million people, it's a formidable force to reckon with in terms of investment and basically linking up with systems like China, and let's say payment systems like Chinese counterparts of Mir in Russia, let's say, and etc. That's how I see it as of today. And before consensus is a very difficult thing to achieve in the first place, right? So let's start with something smaller, and I think bigger players, they should be more or less interested to kind of at least help and assist and trying to link up 2 countries, then 3, and with that kind of approach, I think something can work faster and it's more practical from the political standpoint. I think it's more practical.
Right. Zuhursho, I'm going to tell you a secret. Shanghai Cooperation Organization is actually in the business of consensus building every day. Imagine 8 countries coming together and actually building consensus. And we have the SCO Summit coming up on 10th of November. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of documents on the way, very difficult documents to build a consensus around, but SCO is doing it. So it is our job to try to build a consensus through events like this as well, right? To first and foremost, build trust and understand each other, build empathy. I think that's important. Max, I'm going to ask you the same question. Maybe you can add something to what Zuhursho has already said. What do you think needs to be done in order for the consensus on cross-border e-commerce be achieved?
So I want to emphasize my answer a bit more on the financial part of it. I think that Zuhursho talked about the physical goods. There's also a consensus around the currencies used actually to support e-commerce trade. Today, the US dollar is the world's international reserve currency. A lot of people trade raw materials and finished goods in US dollars, even if they are not doing directly trade with the United States. And it's apparent to many economists that this state of affairs is also gradually changing. As Asia becomes more of an economic center, there's going to be more people and more interest to use local currencies to do this. One of the most notable surprising proposals actually came from Mr. Niu Shen, who was the managing director of Sequoia China. He actually proposed at the recent CPPCC meeting to create an East Asia stablecoin collective, where the currencies of the Korean won, the Japanese yen, Chinese RMB, and the Hong Kong dollar would actually be created into a basket that will then facilitate the trade of goods between these 4 countries. And I see that actually inside the SCO region, there also exist similar opportunities, right, which you can not necessarily use a unilateral currency, so that's sort of the old paradigm in the world, but actually use a basket of currencies, including the currencies of the Central Asian regions, of China, of Russia, and have that become the settlement method by which goods are accounted for and also allowed to flow. And I believe that actually will potentially open up additional financing opportunities as well. Like for many of the people we talked to earlier with the other panelists, that there's infrastructure necessary in place to actually support cross-border e-commerce. Like who's going to pay for this, right? And if you actually have a sort of trust that the cross-border settlement currencies can be easily transferred, you can actually start to see cross-country infrastructure building with a view that this will eventually be used for the e-commerce infrastructure. So I guess that's my view. I hope that the digital Yuan initiative actually spills over and becomes a digital sort of SEO general meta currency. That can be a kind of exciting opportunity for many of us here.
Well, maybe one day we will have a digital SEO currency that will connect all of us, and it will be much better to make transaction in the SEO currency, if you will. Let me provide you with some key numbers, I think, that are very important on global numbers with the e-commerce sector. So UNICTAD reported that the global e-commerce turnover in 2019 hit $26 trillion. Although this represents only a fraction of the total volume of world trade, the prospects of the industry are truly enormous. According to McKinsey calculations, in 10 years, 3 out of 4 people in the world will have a mobile device with internet access. And a rapidly growing middle class with higher purchasing power will provide a healthy demand for online retailers, which will lead to an increase in the relatively modest moment of e-commerce B2C. And there are many analysts that are basically pointing at the SEO region, especially to Russia, to India, and other developing countries. Within the e-commerce, of course, China is way ahead of everybody else. But they're basically saying that this is a market to watch. My last question to both of you, I want you to basically imagine, close your eyes and imagine, in 10 years, where are we with regard to e-commerce and digital economy as a whole? Zuhursho.
Where are we? You mean humankind? Okay. I hope that a lot of projections today, especially the optimistic ones, materialize. Okay, and I imagine a world without COVID, hopefully, and at least I look at things through the prism of the initiatives that I'm part of as a company organization, Alif. And in 10 years, I pretty much know what we want to achieve, where we want to be. And, in our case, we would like to be able to serve markets with over 1 billion people. So it could be, smaller jurisdictions, a number of 5 or 10 or 15 that need some sort of attention today. So in 10 years, we can bring about that prosperity, or at least be part of that, story to make those countries and states and jurisdictions better places, to be, to live, and to, let's say, to rear children. And I am envisioning, I'm looking towards a world which is more connected, which is much better. So with that connection, we should have a better communication, not in terms of technology, but communication among, civilizations, nations, and people. And I hope we are together, especially this organization, can bring this about and be that, very, very important force to make this happen.
It seems like you've just provided us the mission statement of the SEO and all of its organs, and including us at SCOLAR, who also is envisioning connecting a 1 billion youth. Max?
Just to build on this eloquent description Zuhursho shared, I want to emphasize that technology fundamentally is a deflationary trend. That previously e-commerce's arise, if you want a nice thing, you were constrained by the material capacity of your local environment. Today, anywhere in the world, if you have the ability to have drop shipping, you can receive the most high-tech innovation, right, that's been consumer manufactured and delivered to your doorstep. And I believe this trend hopefully will continue and accelerate, but with a caveat, which is we need to understand how the things we consume can actually be sustainable for the world we live in. We need to actually take full stock of how we use e-commerce to alleviate poverty, drive economic growth, but also reduce the waste that we're generating. And I think it's a uneasy balance between the economic drivers, right, and also the sustainability drivers. But fundamentally, we live on the same planet, so it's important for us to consider. I also see that inside the SEO region, many people have very creative skills, and if they're able to share those skills to make products that are then appealing to the large consumer audiences that we have also within the member countries, we're going to actually see a huge economic injection of vitality into these developing regions. When China started to do Taobao in the rural facilities, that brought two things. It brought access to really nice goods to the rural population of China, and second is it allowed them a market in the inner city. And so many farmers saw their fortunes multiply overnight because now they suddenly were able to sell on Taobao stores. So I have similar hopes that other producers across this region can also experience that type of economic injection.
Well, it's a great world, and hopefully in 10 years we all meet again. Majority of us becoming much more friendlier, maybe developing new relationships, partnerships, hopefully. And by that time, SEO will turn 30. And 30, as everybody knows, is a very respectable age. And I think the region will be much more interconnected. At least everybody here at this forum has enough skills to contribute. Victoria, we're 34 minutes over time. Please take it over. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alim. Thank you, Zuhursho. Thank you, Max and Aikanysh, for all your insights. And